Well, you just got done listening to Pastor Aaron preach his sermon for this week's Good Word on marriage. And I'm curious to know, I'd wonder, what's the last wedding that you went to? I have a picture right there. This is not the last wedding I went to, but that was one of the first weddings I got to officiate of one of my good friends, Alex Smith. And I love a good wedding, and maybe you do too. There's something about the energy of the space, the excitement of the bride and the groom. And if you've ever stood up in a wedding, or if a close friend or family member's gotten married, while they're up there making these vows to each other, you get excited. You want to kind of root them on. When they kiss the bride at the end of the ceremony, you want to applaud, right? There's an excitement and a joy at seeing the union of two people, especially two people that you love. But we also know experientially in life that a marriage isn't always an easy word. Maybe we're single and we wish that we were married and we've been longing for marriage, but that person hasn't come true for us in our life, or the relationships we've had have been not marked by the commitment that we see in marriage. Maybe we're married, but our marriage is under strain, and sometimes we wish that we were single. That's a hard thing. It's a hard word to think of. And maybe our lives have even been touched by divorce and by a separation that hurts and stings, or there's still bitterness and resentment over how that went down, or why that had to happen. Marriage is a good word, but it's not an easy word. It's not an easy word because we're flawed. And that was the whole story of Hosea, right? This image of us as an uncommitted people, a people who don't keep our marriage vows, those covenant vows that the Israelites swore to God, but never really kept. That's us. And that might hit you today. That might hit you right now as a bummer, not like a wedding day. That might hit you in a hard spot in your heart, and not feel festive. But here's the gospel. The gospel is that God has been the perfect husband, the perfect groom, the perfect committed spouse. Where we had lost our way, where we had gone after other lovers, God had always remained true to his love to us. And that's what we're celebrating right now. There's a place actually in Revelation that describes heaven as the marriage feast of the Lamb. It's like the wedding's done, the vows have been spoken. I now pronounce you husband and bride, and now the festivities have started, and people are in line inside to grab a drink, and the food's coming out, and there's the festiveness to the day. That's how Revelation describes heaven. That's how it describes our eternity with God, really our union with God, because that is heaven. Isaiah gives a bigger picture of what this marriage feast looks like. This is Isaiah chapter 25. Isaiah writes, "On this mountain, the Lord of hosts will make for all people a feast of rich foods, a feast of well-aged wine, of rich food full of marrow, of aged wine well refined." And one remembers when Jesus attended a wedding with some good wine that he brought. Isaiah writes, God is going to swallow up on this mountain the covering that is cast over all peoples, the veil spread over all nations. He will swallow up death forever. And the Lord will wipe away tears from all faces, and the reproach of his people he'll take away from all the earth. God has pronounced his vows to us, and we know his word is good. He will not forsake his vows to us. So we're engaged, you might say. to God. When he returns, then comes the consummation. Then comes the wedding day and the feast, the celebration of what's been done. And today, here in worship, we're celebrating that in advance. As we eat the body and drink the blood of Jesus, we're tasting and seeing that the Lord is good to his word, that he has been faithful to us. I pray you know God has been faithful to you as well, wherever you're at and whatever's gone on in your life, in your marriage. God has been faithful to his marriage to you. That's a good word. Thanks so much for joining us today. God be with you this week as you go about your life, living in the reality that you are loved by an everlasting love.